Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. She's a former master's airbrush makeup artist, shares her journey on personal reinvention from working in the wedding industry to becoming a human potential specialist and a whole life coach. With over 22 years of experience as an entrepreneur, her background in human behavior and her ability to read between the lines have been invaluable in her new career. Her mission is to help leaders and entrepreneurs live meaningful lives and make a lasting impact. She has also become an internationally best-selling author and created the online program and journal Dear Future Me, since her faith influences her approach when assisting clients. Her coaching services are designed to help leaders uncover their inner potential and create a meaningful life. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Nicole Richards. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, Caesar. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Nicole, let's start by learning more about you. Tell me, where are you originally from and how was your upbringing?
Oh, well, I live close to Toronto, so I'm Canadian. Upbringing, single parent, middle class family. Um, I can't really say there was too much wrong.
Mhm.
I may not have gotten the new thing quickly, but I eventually got it. So I would say that people go through what I call a trial by fire. Some people go through it in their childhood, and some of
Mhm.
us go through it in their adulthood. So I would say childhood was great. Adulthood, the trial by fire came when I was
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good, and definitely I want to dive into that. So let me ask you this: a lot of times, people talk about, well, if you were born into just one parent, then there must be something wrong with you, or you had a bad childhood or things like that. And I only say that because I can relate to that, right? I grew up without a father, and it wasn't until like I was 10 or so that my mom, was with somebody else, and then who I see as my father is my stepdad. Nevertheless, growing up with just one parent, it can become a little bit challenging, right? To the person, to the kid, in terms of learning and growing. How was that for you, being just from with a single parent?
Single parent. You know what? I would say that I was very blessed.
Okay.
Some people, and my mother had a really good job with the phone company. It's called Bell Canada, and
Hmm.
they forced their employees to buy stocks,
Ah.
right? It was actually mandatory.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so, so I would say, like I said before, my upbringing was pretty simple. Like it was fine, but I would say my mother was really good at dealing with the stress of being a single parent.
Gotcha.
Um, and so when I look back on it now, I realize like how much she really, really took on. Because as a kid, you don't really understand that. And if you're still, getting some of the things that you want, we didn't go on a lot of vacations or anything like that. But if things still seem pretty stable, you don't understand what that person has done for you until you get older and have your own kids.
Yeah, got you. So let's dive into your adulthood. You were talking about that probably one some of the challenging times, and I know after closing your business of 22 years and going through a divorce. Tell me more about that experience, and really what were some of the challenges you were facing?
Yeah, so like I said, some people go through trial by fire when they're younger, and some people go through it in their older age. And so, when I was 40, I found myself a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
I have two young kids with a makeup studio. I had a team of 15. We were in the luxury wedding industry providing hair and makeup services. And I had a serious crossroads and some decisions to make. Because my kids were both under the age of 7, and my son, he just didn't sleep through the night at all. And so I was heavily sleep deprived, and trying to make all of these things work while nursing my wounds because I had just ended my relationship of 23 years. And I just found that my business was going really well. I was hitting 6 figures. I was well known in my industry, but I couldn't keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to replace myself as the person who was running the ship with some sort of admin person, and that was just absolutely a horrible experience. And so I had to make a really difficult decision to shut the whole thing down, take the whole ship and just shut it down and stop. And that realization came to me one day when I had a client in my studio. I had one of my hairstylists in my studio, and I literally I passed out, literally, like just
Mm.
kind of, I went to reach for something and I tipped over.
Wow.
And in that moment, I did kind of bounce up, and of course they were like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
But I was sleep deprived. I was so stressed out, and I was running a really big ship. And I realized that if I don't stop and take care of myself, it's not going to go well. And my kids needed me, right? And so it was
Yeah.
just a lot.
Would you say that you had a challenging divorce, or that added to that, or it was really more just the rest of the stuff?
I think, when you're married and you decide to end that stage in your life, like I met my ex-husband when I was 17 years old, and now I'm like 40 and coming to this realization. And I think there's a ton of things that can make someone decide to go down that road of ending their marriage. But it was just a lot of things compacted on top of another, and then also the stress of, oh my gosh, now I'm going to be a single parent. How do I do this,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
without
Right.
that other person?
Yeah. Well, this might not be relatable to my podcast in terms of that. I think it's important to know, like, even people that might be going through something similar, that you went through, like, I can only imagine the decision of saying, you know what, after so many years, we have to end this relationship, this marriage, and I know that can also have a lot of impact on a lot of decisions and things like that. What could be one advice that you can tell people that, again, that might be going through something like that probably they say, you know what, I didn't see myself that I was going to be going through this myself, that I thought I was going to be with this person forever, right? And now after 15, 20 years, I got to call it quits, because that's not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, and so how do what could be something that can be said to people that say, you know what, at the end of the day, if that's the reality and that's what needs to take place, you got to, one, acknowledge it. Two, you got to be able to face it head on. And number three, you got to take the actions to really disengage from that. I mean, I myself, I was in a 10-year relationship. It took me forever to disengage from that. And I didn't think it was going to happen. Yet it did. Right.
Mhm. So you're saying what's one piece of
Yeah.
advice?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Build your team. Yeah. Build
Yeah.
your team. You're going to need like emotional help, which is a therapist. You're going to need physical help, which might be like a personal trainer. And you're going to need like wise counsel, people
Mm,
around you who are not just going to say, well, you did this, you made this decision and it was the right decision. And they're going to kind of almost natter at what's happening and make it more drama. You need some level-headed people who can walk you through what the next steps are going to be. And so I would say assemble your team. It's the best way to take care of yourself, because you're going through a really massive life change.
yeah. And I would say, regardless of this, the circumstances, or whether or not that was an agreement, a mutual agreement, at the end of the day, like you said, it's a very altering live experience that, regardless of the situation, right, you got to be prepared for that, and nobody would ever be prepared for that. Now, talking about just the fact that you say, okay, well, you realize, you have people in your in your workplace, like, you know what, you might need to just burn the boats, right? And it's like that saying is like, that's the scariest thing, though, right? And some people talk about it like, if you want to conquer the island or get out of the island, you got to burn those boats and just do what you got to do, right? And so that's a very scary thing. Being able to do that and taking that leap of faith. Walk me through that. Obviously, you knew you needed to do it because it was already affecting your health. It was like you said, you were not probably fully present for your kids. And so there was other elements or things that were being impacted by you being there. Except again, taking that leap of faith is not an easy thing to do. Again, going through all of that stuff. I mean, I cannot sugarcoat it. It's not. Yet walk me through that when you decided to do that. What was next, right? And one of the things that I always tell people is that the decisions and the choices that we make today will determine the quality of life that we have tomorrow. And whether we might think that that's not the best decision or that choice, you still have to make that. And then if it's not, pivot immediately and make a different choice. So you make that choice. You took that leap of faith. What were the next steps for you?
Oh my goodness, the next steps? That is a good question. The next steps for me after making that decision was, I would say, more so the physical steps, right? So it's like we got a new place to live. And then after settling in the new place and settling the kids, it was more so for me the spiritual steps, right? Again, building that team, therapist, like spiritual counsel. I'm a person of faith, so I was going to church. I was digging more into scripture. I was digging more into prayer. So I guess for me, the next step after the physical separation was really nourishing my spiritual needs and figuring out, like, who am I and what am I called to do? What does God want me to do next? My individual identity was very much wrapped up in being a married woman and also running a business, right? And so it's those two things are fantastic, but I also was now on my own. So I was on my own. My business has ended. It was like, who am I as Nicole Richards? Okay, so I'm a mom. That's fantastic. But who am I really? And so I would say the spiritual needs became the next thing that I needed to take care of.
Yeah. And that's actually a very important question to ask, I think, at any given point, regardless of the situation. Is like we always gotta come back to that question: is who am I, right? What is my purpose here? What am I here to do? What kind of impact am I looking to leave behind, right? And when you start really drilling down and asking yourself that question, some answers are gonna come, right? And some ideas are gonna come. And so for you is like being able to find out, well, what is that new potential? Obviously, I left my business. That's done. It's closed. Now you got to reinvent yourself, and you got to look at what kind of potential do I have that I can now make a different impact moving forward, right? And so, how do you discover, or what was that thing that helped you discover the fact that what you're doing right now, right? How did that come about?
So when as a makeup artist, when I would go and show up for my clients, people often called me the makeup lady. And I'm going to say, like, 15 years into being called the makeup lady was a little bit annoying. And so one day I actually asked myself the question, like, why don't I like it when they call me that? And I really thought through that. And it's because the makeup part was just the outside thing. But really what I did is I helped manage people's emotions. I asked a lot of questions. I almost became a mind reader. I had to figure out what my clients needed, what was going to make them happy. You're dealing with a woman's self-confidence and who they believe they are, and then you're trying to show that on the outside. And so it's kind of funny. I would say that I got my psychology degree by being a makeup artist. It took me 22 years to get my psychology degree as a makeup artist. And so coaching became a really natural pivot. And I had other artists who asked me to coach them. And maybe I believed them. They said I was really good at it.
Yeah.
And so then I went down the rabbit hole, became certified, really got to understand what coaching is, learned more about human behavior. And so it's kind of interesting. It was a good pivot from providing a service where you have to listen to people and you really have to listen between the lines. They're also telling you a lot about their own life and a lot about their relationships and the people around them. And then I would go walk into rooms where I provide the makeup service, and basically, there's a mom and a sister and an aunt, and there's a whole dynamic, a whole family dynamic that's happening, and you have to navigate that. And so, like I said, coaching became a really natural progression. And once I had more information on what that should look like for my client, it was a really easy progression.
Yeah, right. I get it. And part of it too is the fact that you, being in your business, like again, it was a people business, right? And so, in essence, here you're doing the same thing. You're still in that people business, which again, I believe that once you really enjoy some of what you're doing, a part of what you're doing, right? Obviously, the business must not was probably not working 100%. Yet the fact that you were dealing with people, you were listening to them while you were doing their makeup or things like that, that part of that business, right? Because you enjoyed it so much, it kind of probably went into now the coaching. It's like, well, I'm still in the people business in helping people. Yet let me understand it better, and let me go further into how I can really impact people's lives, right?
Yeah, and just like you, Cesar, you have these great conversations with people and you get to know them, and you're a coach as well. And so
Yeah.
you get to coach people, and it's amazing to have these conversations where, you grow, they grow, you learn something new, they learn something new. And I love the part of the depth of conversation when someone says, "Oh, I can actually do that. I didn't know. I didn't know that I was allowed to do that. I didn't know that that was something that was an option for me." And so it's really fun to have those conversations and create those relationships.
Yeah, no, definitely. Here's one thing that you mentioned that I think is so critical. So if you can kind of touch on that, and you mentioned this, is most people are just scratching at the surface of their potential. But what if you wrote a new story for your life, career, or your relationships? Tell me a bit about more about that, because again, I think people are stuck on that. People are stuck on the idea of, I hear this a lot, right? People say, "Yeah, I'm just living day by day. I'm trying to get through today." Or they might even. I saw a post from somebody today, and it was a funny post, right? And it was like, well, what do you want to do in the next couple of years, right? One person was asking the other, and then the other person said, "Give me a break. I'm just trying to figure out how to get through this year, get through December. I cannot even think that far, right?" And again, people have that mentality, and then they take that and really make it as is a joke, like there's nothing more. Let me live day by day. What happens tomorrow. And I get it. I clearly understand. We're here today and we're gone tomorrow. Tomorrow is not promised. I also believe though that today is our preparation for tomorrow based on what we did yesterday, right? Yesterday is a learning experience. We got to be able to extract those lessons. Then we got to be able to apply them today so that we can prepare for tomorrow. And so when you see it from that perspective, while it may not be promised, we want to be able to figure out, okay, how can I move 1% better so that I can have a better life in the next couple of years, couple of months, right? So tell me more about that, because I guess people don't see that potential, right?
Yeah, so scratching at the surface of your potential is one of the things that I'm very curious about people. And when you talk to those people who say they're just trying to get through today, they're just trying to get through November, if you continue to talk to them, they'll tell you about something that they like to do. And people have very quirky hobbies, whether they like to work on cars, or like my daughter has taught herself how to crochet and she makes these
Mm.
little animals. Everybody's got a little thing that they like to do, but they don't think it's really, either they've been ridiculed for it or they just kind of don't know what to do with it, but it's their thing. Um, and when we don't tap into those little things and follow the breadcrumbs of where they could lead us, that's where I say we're scratching at the surface of our potential. And so there's some people that really, that scratch might not become any bigger than just like a groove in the floor. It might not become any bigger. They may not see how much more they can do. But there are some people that when they are triggered in the right place, scratching at the surface of their potential could be them running a marathon, or them starting a business, or them becoming a real estate agent, right?
Mm.
Or them helping people in some way they never thought possible. And so I think you and I are on the same page where we look for those people that can be triggered into doing a little bit more. And
Mhm.
for the ones who, it might just be a small thing that they can do, like focus there. If there is only a one little thing that you can do to move yourself forward day by day, don't worry about December. Just let's start with what you can do tomorrow so that you're not scratching at the surface of your potential, because there's so much down there.
Yeah, it's one. It reminds me of something very similar. It's like the person that wants to lose weight, right? And they don't like to go to the gym, or it's just an example, right? They don't like to go to the gym, or like that's not for me, right? And one of the things that I tell some of my clients too, and people's like, well, why don't we start with small steps, right? Like maybe it might be too overwhelmed to look at, man, I got to go to the gym, I got to work out, I got to do all this stuff, right? How about we start with small steps? You know, first day is just get up, intentionally get up early, as if you were going to go to the gym, and don't do anything. Just sit in your bed, get up. The next day, get up, sit in your bed, put on, your workout clothes. Again, don't do anything. Just take that next step. The next day, maybe just do all of that and then get on your car. Maybe that don't even drive. Just get on your car like you were gonna go to the gym. The following day, do all of that, drive to the gym and just park outside the gym. Don't go in. And then the next day, do all of that, then walk into the gym, just kind of look at it. And then you keep doing that and you're taking small steps leading to this big commitment that, what, once you see it, it's like, wow, maybe it wasn't as challenging or as big as I was making it seem, right? And he's be able to take those things. Yeah.
Yeah, those little steps are really important for our like inner growth, right? For our belief that we can actually accomplish this bigger goal. And when we watch, I don't know, on Instagram, or you're watching the show The Biggest Loser, it looks like everybody's made these big transformations in a short period of time. And then when you actually listen, it took them 5 years.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
It's like it's all of these little steps that compound, and then all of a sudden you have like from the small tiny pebble to this big like boulder that has rolled, and you realize, oh, if I just do little things every day, something will change. And so if you're just scratching at the surface of your potential, you're still thinking about what you can do, and maybe you can't do it, and all the voices are telling you that you can't do it, but really, to your point, just put your running shoes on. Just do
Right.
that. Just start there.
Yeah, I start from that perspective. So, in this journey, taking your leap of faith, obviously you're coaching people now, and I also believe that coaches need coaches, right? What kind of work have you done for yourself? Whether it's mental, I know you talked about your spirituality. What else have you done to help you get to where you're at now?
Good question. I'm an avid reader, and so I read a lot. I pray a lot. Yes, coaches absolutely need coaches. So having somebody else almost poke at your thoughts, right? Someone else get curious about what you're thinking is super helpful. I have a spiritual mentor. They're not like a certified coach per se, but someone that I believe has lived some years and lived some experience, and they're very wise as well. And then I think that having a therapist is super important, right? So
Mhm.
I've definitely done that. And then there's just like the process of like moving your body and making sure that you're active. That alone mixed
Mm,
in with everything else is super important.
yeah, right. So you mentioned quite a few people that you work with in terms of kind of mentoring you or helping you out in your own journey, right? What's your belief when people talk about why would I pay somebody to coach me, right? What would I pay for somebody to tell me what to do or not to do, kind of thing, right? Because a lot of people don't feel like that's necessary, right? Even to get a life coach, right? And so what's your opinion on that? Because I believe that not only is necessary, just like anything else, when you're investing on something else, you're investing in yourself, right? I said
Right.
people don't see that. So what's your opinion on that?
So my fancy title is that I'm a human potential and whole life coach. Okay. And so that my approach is not to be the guru that comes down from the mountain and tells anybody anything. But what I am is a non-judgmental and mentor sometimes. Sometimes I'm a coach, sometimes I'm a business partner. And so I basically work with my clients in the way that they need. So to answer your question, like what would I say to someone who thinks that they don't need to pay for that advice because they've got a sister or a brother or a cousin that can help them out? Um, it's really different when this person doesn't know you.
Mm,
Okay, so your outside friends and family, they know you and they have their own opinion of you. I have no clue who you are, and I want to get to know you. And I basically come from life experience, but also business experience. So I work on both sides. A person can't really be successful in business until they take care of little places in their life that are causing them to almost fall, like these little pitfalls.
Mhm.
So I don't really sell my services or sell the idea of coaching. I think the people that want coaching need to actually want it. They need to want to make changes. They need to want a different perspective. They need to want to have a conversation with somebody to unlock places about who they are that they never thought possible. And that is a special group of people.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Um, do you work with any specific gender or all kinds of people all over the
Yeah,
place?
I work with both men and women. I think honestly for me it's almost like sharpening my saw because men and women think so different,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I'm obviously not a man, and so it's great having conversations with men, just kind of understanding how they think, and then I'm a woman, so it's easy to talk to women, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to have the balance of both.
Got you. If people wanted to connect with you, learn more about your services, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram as NicoleRichards.co. And my website is NicoleRichards.co as well.
Okay, awesome. And then, do you have any daily habits that you do right now? Anything that you do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep you up and going?
Daily habits. So one of my daily habits is journaling. So I have a program that will be launching soon called Dear Future Me. And I would say the process of journaling and taking a life account and a life assessment has really helped me in the last couple of years to get to, a stronger mindset, along with all of the other things we talked about, like coaching and therapy. But Dear Future Me was really born out of me going, like, cleaning up my daughter's room. And I found a little piece of crumpled paper, and it said in her writing, Dear Future Me, don't forget how amazing you are. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like,
That's
at the time
huge.
she was like 10. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness. Right. And then that kind of led me down my own little rabbit hole of like, well, what am I doing for the future me? Because there's a future you, Caesar, that you haven't
Mhm.
met yet. And that
Right.
future Caesar is really, he's really like counting on you. He's counting on you to do this podcast, to do all your habits, to do all the things so that when you're 80,
Yeah.
you've taken care of that version of yourself. And so one of my habits is making sure that I have meetings with myself and I take an account and I go through this process. So the program is a 5-week program. It's 150 questions. It's a lot. It's on going to be live, but also a journaling process.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of my strongest habits that I can take other than prayer.
Wow. And you know what? And I love that idea. And that idea of just dear future me. I mean, it just reminds me again that the fact that sometimes we're so easily judgmental to ourselves, right? And I remember when I started my journey, and I started doing even podcasting and writing books and things of that nature. It was very hard for me to look at myself in the mirror and say, "Hey, Caesar, I love you. Hey, Caesar, I appreciate you." Right? Because it really comes down to that. It's like is being able to say that to yourself, because sometimes we're looking for this external validation from somebody else. And while that's good, it's only sustainable for a period of time. And really, the one that needs to validate you every single day is that person that you see in the mirror every single morning, right? And so a lot of times it's very hard to be able to do that. At least it was for me. And now I do a lot of that, and I do a lot of affirmations, and I do a lot of uh, uh, um, um, in the morning journaling, things of that nature, where I'm giving myself grace for that. And so I love that idea, because you're right. What we're doing right now is building up for our future selves, and so we got to be able to do the right things there. So no, that's huge.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, because that idea of like that self-validation, we are always looking for validation externally. And when you're looking for it in the wrong places, you're not really living out to your full potential. So it's a good point.
Yeah, no, definitely. One last question for you is, and you've already given us a lot of great information. So let me see if I can get a couple more out of you. For the people that are watching this and are listening to us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one or a few things you can say to them so they can start overcoming that challenge?
I would say like to journal. Like that's a really good, like
Mm.
journal your thoughts. find a really good therapist, someone that you can talk those thoughts out with. But I think that practice and process of, a lot of people don't want to be alone with their own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
right? But actually writing it out, getting it out, not on a digital device, but with your own hand. There's a lot of science that says when we start writing, there's a brain like connection that,
Yep.
and I can't explain all that, but they say it works. Um, Journaling, and then if you have to write this question every day for the next 90 days and you don't really have an answer, it's okay. But writing the question of what do I want? And so for some people, what they want might be a house, a new house, right? And so the steps that they go through are, well, I want a new house, but then what city is it going to be in? And how much is it going to cost? And they start going through all of these steps that they just don't need an answer for yet. Just figure out what it is that you want. And I think writing is the best way to get those ideas and those feelings out.
Yeah, no, I love that. Just to make sure, so people don't misunderstand this, and I want to get your opinion on that too. Is the question, what do I want or what do I need?
You know what? I would say both questions. They're
Okay.
completely separate. Yeah. What do I want and what do I need? I think I wonder if most people kind of know what they need. Like there's the basics, right? We need food,
Yeah.
shelter, water, right?
Right.
And maybe at times people don't realize what they need is some sort of spiritual connection. They need some sort of spiritual mentor. They need a spiritual practice where they sit quietly again with their own thoughts and the things that come up out of that. And so, you know, most people don't know what they want. I would
Yeah.
start there, but I do like that question of like, what do I actually need beyond the basics?
Yeah. Right. No, I love that. No, that's huge. Well, Nicole, thank you again for sharing all of this information for with us. I'm really grateful to have you here today. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, thanks, Caesar. This has been absolutely great. I love what you're doing. I love the idea of your book that you can overcome anything. And really, I'm sure if people just kind of go along with your podcast, go along with your book, they will find the steps that they need to do that. So thank you for having me.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being here. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you share this podcast interview because somebody definitely needs to hear this message. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything Podcast Show. Thank you.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.